Hi everyone, welcome back. We're in a new setting this time, which is always fun. So back in March, Disney Plus celebrated its 1 year anniversary here in the UK. Mind you, it had been out in the US and a handful of other countries already. But anyway, when Disney Plus first launched, its selection was a lot more limited than what it is today. It had The Mandalorian, which is honestly what most people already used it for. Then it had The Simpsons, some Disney Channel shows, and a bunch of Disney documentaries. In more recent months, we've got stuff like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and the addition of Star, which added a bunch of new content. But I think the big draw of Disney Plus when it first released was it was going to be this all-access pass to the entire library of Disney movies dating back almost 100 years. And to Disney Plus's credit, it does have a pretty large number of Disney movies. Starting from the modern era with movies like Frozen, back through the Renaissance with Aladdin, then to the classics like Cinderella and Snow White. It even has a pretty big library of old live-action stuff like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or some of the old Disney nature documentaries. But the thing is, it's not quite a complete collection. In fact, it's not even close. It's pretty well known that the Walt Disney Company is a multinational superpower with ownership of so much media that even if you locked yourself in a room for the rest of your life, you'd never be able to get through it all. And it's understandable why there's so much missing. For a lot of this stuff, the licensing is all over the place and it's not really clear who has the rights to broadcast it. Other things were never really made with the intention that people would end up watching them decades in the future. So all the tapes and the masters and the prints are pretty low quality and it's not really worth sticking them on a high definition streaming service. And the rest of it is Song of the South. And ask yourself, do you really want to watch Song of the South? Really? But with all that being said, I still think it's kind of disappointing that Disney Plus led us to believe that this was the key to the Disney Vault, when in reality it's only a selection of some of the stuff that Disney has to offer. And so in this video, I want to take a brief look at some of the things that aren't on Disney Plus that I think probably should be. So let's talk about the early 2000s. Now this was a peculiar time for Disney. The Renaissance era was over, and while Walt Disney Animation was still making some good movies, they were also making their fair share of flops. I guess you could say there was a lot of diversity in things that Disney was putting out at the time, which was good because it meant we got a lot of cool stuff, but it also meant we got a lot of not so cool stuff. Regardless, this diverse range of strange and interesting ideas spilled over into Disney's Saturday morning cartoon shows. And so we got loads of cool but also kind of bizarre shows. Like, remember when Disney made a Buzz Lightyear TV show? And that's why the first group of stuff I'd like to see on Disney Plus is all of the Toon Disney and Disney Channel cartoons of the early 2000s. We've already got Recess, of course, which is honestly a great show. And we've got Lilo and Stitch the series, a show that I only ever really watched for the Recess cameo. But I'd like to see shows like Lloyd in Space, the less appreciated show from the creators of Recess. I liked Recess a lot. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, both the movie and the TV series, must be somewhere out there in the Disney Vault. I guess this show is kind of like the Toy Story extended universe. I think the whole concept for it is fascinating because it's basically like a show within the world of Toy Story. Also, I found out they made toys of the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command characters, but they all had the Toy Story logo slapped on them, so it must have been really confusing if you got this toy but you'd only ever seen Toy Story, because you'd have no idea who these characters were. Like honestly, without knowing the show, Booster just looks a bit like a rip-off Buzz Lightyear you'd find at a car boot sale somewhere. The last Toon Disney show I want to mention is House of Mouse. I used to watch this show tons. The premise for this is that Mickey Mouse runs a sort of nightclub, or like a dinner theatre. Not Pleasure Island, a different one. And all of the characters from the Disneyverse show up to watch old cartoons. House of Mouse is where I first found out about one of the more obscure Disney characters called Mortimer. He's kind of like Mickey's nemesis, or like the villain of the show. He's also meant to be a mouse as well, but that's kind of confusing because he's like twice the size of Mickey. I imagine House of Mouse is stuck in some sort of difficulty due to the fact that it uses loads of old Disney cartoons, or that I think it's on some other streaming platform, but hopefully one day Disney brings that out of the woodwork. Anyway, on to the next category. If you're planning a trip to Disney, whether it's the first time you've been or the 100th time, wait, no, that's the wrong script. So Disney's doing okay when it comes to parks content. They've got that Imagineering documentary, there's One Day at Disney, they have that weird sort of slow TV thing called the Sunrise series. But as a fan of the parks myself, I think there could be more. There could always be more. There is a plethora of parks content that exists in the Disney archives. Disney have made countless TV specials at Disneyland and Walt Disney World over the decades. Sure, a lot of it probably looks really dated now, but hey, that didn't stop them putting the Muppet Show on there. Why not the Muppets at Walt Disney World, or the grand openings of the parks? Most of this stuff was aired as part of the Wonderful World of Disney, or before that it was known as the Wonderful World of Color, or even before that it was called Walt Disney's Disneyland. Lots of the episodes of that show were just airings of movies on TV, but some of it was really cool specials and documentaries that I'd love to see on Disney Plus. It'd be great to get a collection of Disney parks over the years. That way you could even put the vacation planning videos on there that they used to send to prospective tourists. The Circle Vision movies from Epcot would be amazing to see if you could somehow adapt them to TV. I understand why Disney doesn't want to show a lot of this stuff. A lot of that stuff is just a glorified commercial for something that hasn't existed for 20 or 30 years, but I think it's still pretty cool regardless. And now this is the segment of the video that I like to call things that are never coming to Disney Plus and probably never should. Just to be clear, these are not part of the list of things that I want to see on Disney Plus. This is just a list that I thought would be interesting to mention. So obviously there's Song of the South, which I've already mentioned. I was really surprised to see the Star Wars Vintage collection appear recently. This is mostly made up of the old extra Star Wars content from the late 70s and the early 80s, like the terrible TV Ewoks movies. But unfortunately missing from that list, or maybe fortunately depending on who you ask, is the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I think is something that we'll never see and probably never should see anytime soon, because it's just so bad. But it is available on YouTube. But another thing we're never going to see, and probably never should see, that doesn't get anywhere near as much attention, is one of the old Disney nature documentaries. Now, in the 1950s, Disney released a series of documentaries called True Life Adventures. They even made a logo for it. There it is. Some of these documentaries were award-winning. In fact, the entire series won a total of 8 Academy Awards. Some of them are also available on Disney Plus. You can see things like The Vanishing Prairie, The Living Desert, and Jungle Cat. But there is one true life adventure that probably will never come to Disney Plus. And that documentary is called White Wilderness. Now, White Wilderness is a documentary about Arctic animals. I haven't seen much of it, but I think most of it's pretty boring. But there is one very famous scene that I'm not going to show here that involves some lemmings. Do you know where I'm going with this? You see, there's this long-standing myth that lemmings commit mass suicide. And this documentary sort of added credence to that idea by showing a bunch of lemmings falling down a cliff and jumping into the ocean where they'd later die. Now, this idea that lemmings blindly follow each other to their death is a pretty widespread thing. It's even the basis for the game Lemmings. But the thing is, it's a complete misconception. Now, there is some truth to the idea that lemmings sometimes mistake large bodies of water for small bodies of water. They try and cross them and then they drown. But it's not quite the thing that the documentary is trying to show. Because, and this is one of the wildest things about Disney nature documentaries, it was found out several years later that they faked this whole section. And the way that they faked it is horrifying. You see, instead of going into nature, finding some lemmings and then following them around to see what they did, the Disney producers got a bit impatient. I guess they decided that the lemmings weren't really following direction, so they decided to take the matter into their own hands. Literally. So they took the lemmings from their native habitat to a landlocked part of Canada. And when they got there, they just threw the lemmings off a cliff. And that movie won an Oscar. You know at the end of a movie when it says no animals were harmed in the making of this? Yeah, not this one. This one just says, lots of animals were harmed in the making of this motion picture. Lots and lots of them. That's how we made it. Lemmings and the many other controversies of Disney aside, there's various movies and TV shows that aren't on Disney Plus that I think really should be. There are movies like Bridge to Terabithia, half of the stuff on Disney XD, and of course old cartoons that aren't really worth talking about in great detail. Disney have an unbelievably huge amount of content available to them, and it's a shame that they're keeping so much of it locked away. Even with a streaming platform to take advantage of, the old ideas of the Disney Vault are still somewhat in play. I don't think there's any chance that any Disney executives will be watching this video, but if you are, come on guys. Give us the holiday special. But those are my incredibly disjointed thoughts on what I'd like to see on Disney Plus. I'd love to know what you'd like to see on there. Maybe you agree with some of my choices, maybe you don't. Let me know in the comments. As always, if there's something you'd like me to cover next, let me know, and I'll see you next time.